Jennifer Matthews Lewis. She joins me right now. Hey, you!
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How's
It's
it going? I've missed your B man.
I missed you too. I'm glad to have you back on. It's been a while.
Thank you. I know it has been. I know we've been keeping in touch, but we've gotta do more, mister.
We will.
Yeah.
We definitely will. Let's get down. Let's just get down to it. First of all, tell me how Chicks and Salsa came to be because I'm hooked on that show. I'm hooked on that show
Thank you.
that you guys. I'm hooked on that show that you guys do, and I always check it every time you do it. Tell me how that show came to be.
So about 4 years ago, I saw some friends and like we were like so Carrie, Megan, and I were part of, and that's what started was Three Chicks in a Pod.
Right.
And so Carrie, Megan, and I were with a network, and um, Carrie and I had been friends previously, and we were doing shows for other people, and we saw some of these guys going to the Super Bowl. And I messaged one of the owners, and I was like, "I'll be at the Super Bowl next year." He was like, "So you're starting your own show?" I was like,
Mm-hmm.
"Yes." So I messaged Carrie, and I was like, "We need to start our own show." I said, and so we started like putting together our plan, and then I was like, you know what? I kind of want Megan. Now, truthfully, Carrie pushed this because she started blasting it out.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't remember who, I think Megan came up with Three Chicks in a Pod. I think that
Yeah.
was her idea for the title. We
Mm-hmm.
loved it because it's unique, it's something else. But what makes us special is that we're actually friends, right?
Yep.
So we actually care about each other. We know what's going on in each other's lives. Um, Many have tried to, emulate us. So far, none have
Oh yeah.
succeeded. And then we met this great chick, Candy, and
Mm-hmm.
we started bringing Candy on. So we started doing it. We were like, well, you know what? Let's do Chicks and Salsa also. That way we can bring on more people if we want to. And so we started rotating. Some weeks it would just be the three of us with Three Chicks in a Pod. Some weeks it would be Chicks and Salsa. And so now it's been this summer, it's going to pretty much be Chicks and Salsa
Mm-hmm.
because Megan has a cool new job right now. She's living her best life. Plus, like, we've had like, all of us have had some family issues, and
Yeah.
Candy adds such a wealth of knowledge and
Mm-hmm.
just another level of experience because Candy and her husband get do a lot of events as well as myself.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's a match made in heaven with all of us working together, and we're all friends. So that's how we came to be.
If you haven't had a chance to check out Chicks and Salsa, I suggest that you do. These girls are amazing, and they bring it. All right, this is not a softie. They bring it, and
Hmm.
I love the fact that they do. Now let's really get down to it. The NFL
Okay.
schedule is out there,
Yes.
and one of the teams, of course, that we cover is the Carolina Panthers.
Yes.
Now, there's a lot of chatter going on in Carolina. There's a lot of optimism in Carolina
Hmm.
as well, but it ain't fair that you have to start two of the first 3 weeks on the road. You got to make a short
Correct.
trip to New Orleans, and then you got to make a long trip to Las Vegas in week three.
Mhm.
In the
Hmm.
middle of those 3 weeks, you get the San Diego Chargers. Look at the first 3 weeks of the schedule. As I said, go down to New Orleans, you host the Chargers, and then you go way out to Vegas. What kind of test is that going to provide early for these young Panthers?
Um, it will definitely give because I mean the Chargers have had their, you know, ups and downs just like we have, but they've had more ups
Right.
than we have in the last couple of years. so, um, but I think, I mean, it'll just get them ready for the road. I am cautiously optimistic about the Saints game, to be honest with you,
Mm-hmm.
just because I am loving what Dan Morgan and Dave Canales are bringing. Like that, for those who don't know, Dan Morgan is our general manager. Dan was actually part of the team that created our culture. He was in the locker room when Sam Mills gave his keep pounding speech.
Mm-hmm.
And Dan honestly should probably be a future Hall of Famer in my humble opinion, but that's just one girl talking. But like he and Dave are bringing back Keep Pounding, that Roll the Toll and David Tepper, I will say, allowed him to get rid of.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know for sure. My gut is that Dan and Dave laid down some ground rules. Hey, if we're coming in, you're out of football operations because it's not working so well with you in charge.
Right.
So, but that's how, I mean, when your first 5 years of your team were better than the last 5 years, there's something to be said.
That should give you a clue.
Exactly. But I honestly think Jacksonville game woke Mr. Tepper up.
Yeah.
I don't think he was actually throwing a drink at a fan. I think he was throwing it at the back bar and just tossing it, and I think it splattered. But, you know, everything's in the eye of the beholder. But if you actually look at that video, he didn't go to the window and throw it. He got frustrated at something he saw on the field, probably Bryce's second or third interception. But what I think with Dave's optimism, and honestly, Dan said we need players with a dog, D-A-W-G, mentality from the beginning. And that's what they're getting. And they're letting people go who don't want to be there. Why? Dan played with players who didn't want to be in Carolina anymore. Remember, Julius Peppers was our first-round draft pick.
Right.
He's now Hall of Fame. Congrats, Mr. Peppers. But when he didn't want to play anymore, he didn't want to play anymore for the Panthers. And that was right, because he was born and raised in New Bern area. He went to Carolina, and then he came to Charlotte. He needed to go out and spread his wings. He came home, which is awesome. But when Dancy and Brian Burns not wanting to play for us anymore, he let him walk.
Yep.
Frankie Luvo, he let him walk. And you know what? After last year, I don't blame any of those guys. Y'all read the article in The Athletic, I'm sure. And
I did. Yep.
It wasn't, I mean, when your team is being compared to the Hunger Games, that's an issue.
Ooh.
It was.
Your volunteers tribute.
Yes.
Listen, when I read that article from The Athletic and saw that comparison, I had to put it down and walk away and just like hold my stomach and wince and go, ooh, they went there with that comparison. Holy cow.
I had to read it in increments. I think it took me 3 days to read that whole article just because it was so in-depth and detail. And there was so much. And honestly, Brian, you know, I used to live uptown. A lot of it sang true to me. Things that had been going on years before. Not about texting people, things like that, but like how Matt Rule ran the team. And, you know, because a lot of players would talk to me off, off camera, and just, there's still a lot of stuff I know, and, you know.
They weren't happy.
No. And I can understand.
They
if
were
you're
not
in that
happy.
toxic of an environment, it's not good.
Yeah, they were not happy because a couple of players talked to me and expressed the same and expressed the same thing. They expressed the exact same thing, and you slowly saw, and you and I talked about this one of the first times you were on the air with me. They splintered. This whole team was splintered because of so many personalities that were around, and no one knew who was in charge. No one knew what they were gonna do about it, or do with it, or do with that newfound power. And then all of a sudden, everybody was just marching to the beat of their own drum, and not only not being together. And you saw it during practices and everything. You saw more. You saw more than I. But during the game, you can see that the habits that they had there were not producing good results at all.
Nope. And what I love is, like, I've seen videos of Dave actually going out and doing OTAs with the players, running the drills. He is in the he is bought and sold into this team. And honestly, I am trepidatiously excited about this season because Coach Canales, and I haven't been this excited since Coach Rivera. Straight up 100%, because they want what's best for the players.
Right. And
the players come first.
That's the key right there. The first time I had Jen on the show, that was her first sentence to me. It's what's best for the players, because when you were on with me the first time, you spat it out and you saw it. I talked to a couple of announcers in Carolina because I was living there at the time, and they saw the same thing that we did. They expressed the same thoughts that we did, that it has to be about the players. Now that you have this new regime, it has become about the players. The other trick is it's about the players coming together for a common goal. That, of course, is to compete in New Orleans for the Super Bowl. When we're looking at this schedule, I want to take a look at weeks 4, 5, and 6, because you get 2 at home with Cincinnati and Atlanta, but then you got to travel to Chicago to face the Bears. So there's going to be a lot of revenge factors playing around in that game in week 5 at Soldier Field in Chicago. I may have to make a drive up to Chicago to try to cover that game. But how much of a chip on the shoulder? How much of a chip on the shoulder will Carolina have in week 5, October 6th, when they play the Chicago Bears?
Last year, Bryce kept his cool almost all season long.
Yep.
Okay. He is a man again amongst giants, in my opinion. And Brian, you know me, I wasn't a fan of Bryce, but it wasn't because of his size, just for any of the haters out there.
Yep.
Because I have an unpopular opinion that I don't think Alabama produces great quarterbacks.
That's not an unpopular opinion. I said the same thing. AJ McCarron, hello.
Right? And so Bryce actually lost his cool.
Hey, Mac Jones, hello.
God, I can't say him.
When has Alabama?
I cannot say Mac Jones. Kyle Harris, if you are watching, I stand by the fact that I will harass you for the rest of your life for backing up Mac Jones. Kyle is one of my Patriots fans.
I mean, what?
Hey, you got a Patriots fan right here, and I can't stand Mac Jones. What does that tell you?
I was gonna say, we got the dog here too. Mac and cheese.
I'm glad he went to Jacksonville.
Mac and cheese Jones.
And he's gonna language on the bench forever. You know what? My wife made a comment to me when we were watching Alabama-Auburn in 2019. Alabama was right on the goal line. I looked at Joni and she looked at me and she says, "This is an Alabama quarterback. He's gonna mess it up." What does he throw? A pick 6 to Zacoby McClain on the next play.
Right.
I said, thanks for confirming my thought. Alabama's never produced great quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Never.
No, they haven't. And honestly, people come back and be like, look at Jalen Hurts. How long was Jalen Hurts away from the Alabama program with a good head coach, with an amazing quarterback coach?
Yes.
Before they even made the playoffs. 4 years?
Yep.
Then it was another 2 before Super Bowl? Okay.
Yep.
Point made. Poor Tua. I feel bad for Tua. That man should be retired and get the full NFL pension.
Because he got smacked in the head 3 times in 14 weeks. He suffered 3 separate concussions, and I think he's had one since then. I too had an unpopular opinion that Tua should have walked away when he had the chance.
Yeah. And that's just for his health. No other reason. No other reason.
Thank you.
Bryce lost his cool last year in the locker room and went off on the team.
Yeah.
And he had not done that. He was like, we literally just lost to the second worst team in the NFL with a backup quarterback. Are you kidding me? Now, at the time, the Bears had DJ Moore, obviously, and Deontay. DJ had a great game, no lies, but I don't remember who the Bears backup QB was. But had we lost to Justin Fields, okay, that's a little different story with like Justin finally having weapons in Deontay and DJ.
Right.
But Carolina screwed up and letting both of them go. Just saying. But I understood DJ. I didn't understand Deontay. Send him for another year. Dude was rocking and rolling. He was stepping into Christian's shoes. So I think that we're gonna win that one. Personally, I think that the Saints game is gonna be close, but I do think we're gonna pull it out of in the end. Because I think the Saints have a problem. They go in too cocky all the time, and their other problem is their quarterback. As my girl carries his broken down car.
Look, the Saints don't have a quarterback, and I don't count Derek Carr as their quarterback. Not after the beating he's taken. That's another quarterback that should be retired right now. Derek Carr.
Yeah.
Derek Carr has taken an absolute beating.
Yes, he has. I mean, he was with the Raiders for forever, and they're like, I will say this with our O-line, you know this about me, Brian. I am a huge Taylor Moton fan. That man will protect his quarterback. I will take the penalties he gets because he doesn't get a lot of them.
Right.
But he's still the third best lineman in the league? I believe so. So, yeah, I mean, I'm a huge Taylor fan. And I'm excited to see him come into his own again this year. Because he protected the heck out of Bryce last year.
He did.
Bryce would have gotten beat up a lot more than he did. I'm just waiting for us to get a left tackle as good as Jordan Gross, though.
Yeah.
I'm hoping Icky goes back to his rookie year this year with Dave. But I mean, I'm loving it because like one of the first things Dave said was, this isn't about Bryce being the quarterback. This is about Bryce being a part of the team and 11 other players on the field. And we're building a team for the future still. And I loved that. He was like, we're not going to all just blame Bryce. I love that because you and I have talked about it. The quarterback will get too many accolades and too much of the blame.
Too much of the blame. Yep. It's all across the league. And I will give you one of the best examples of a quarterback that gets a lot of accolades, but gets a lot of the blame and still gets a lot of hatred. Does the name Brock Purdy mean anything to you?
Oh yeah. I met him.
And you see the hatred he gets.
Oh yeah.
And I'm not saying that because my team's the 49ers. I'm saying that because I'm looking at this at a realistic prism. I'm looking at this from the whole just to see how the fans act when he does have a good game. He throws a perfect game against Tampa Bay, second straight year he's done that, and they're still saying, oh, he's not that good. Really?
Well, and remember, Cam got a lot of grief too, because you say his name, you're going to get woohoos and boos.
Yeah.
Wow. But Cam got a lot of grief when he said Brock was a game manager. There is not anything wrong with being a game manager. Guess what? The GOAT of the postseason, some quarterback y'all may have heard of, Tom Brady. What is he? He's a game manager. What's wrong with that? You want to be a game manager. You also want to be a game changer.
I'll give you another one who was one of the GOATs of the postseason. Last name Montana.
Yeah, and he got grief too back in the day.
And he still gets a lot of grief. He still gets a lot of grief from people that supposedly know about football. Here's one thing that rankled my nerves about Cam Newton, and I'm going to discuss this at a later time. He was bluntly asked, would you trust Brock Purdy to make plays in the clutch? He didn't even mention him in his answer. He mentioned Deebo Samuel. He mentioned Brandon Ayuk. He mentioned George Kittle. And then he couples it with, I'll trust them. Man, when I tell you my wife heard that and saw me storm out of my office, she had to catch me.
Basically, Cam was saying that it's the playmakers around Brock that actually are doing the things, not Brock himself.
Yeah, Brock's getting the ball to them, and they're making the plays. I mean, look at Christian.
Right.
Look at Debo. I
Yep.
mean, Brock's getting the ball to him, which is the important part. But like, it takes a team.
You take the
Yeah,
whole
it
team.
does.
You're right.
It does.
This is why I get so aggravated when people talk about, oh, this person is a game manager. He's a game manager. Well, what are you supposed to do as a quarterback? Manage the game so you don't lose.
Right.
Mhm.
It's kind of in the title. It's kind of in the job description.
Right.
It is. Don't make us lose. That's the biggest part.
Right.
That's the biggest part of the job description. 7, 8, and 9. You go to Washington, then you go to Denver. It's one of those short trip, long trip things in back to back weeks, and it usually doesn't yield a good result. You get to see Jayden Daniels with the Redskins, and then you get to see Bo Nix with the
Raiders.
Broncos.
Mhm.
You can see Bo Nix with the Broncos.
Yeah.
So you get two good rookie quarterbacks in back-to-back weeks. What scares me about those two games, and I'll say it again, and you've heard me talk about it before, the short trip to Washington, and then you get a long trip west to Denver.
Not only that,
Yeah.
there's also the altitude issue too,
Yep.
because you are going to the Mile High City, which everyone
So-
has a problem with that.
Yeah, and honestly, like Brian knows that. I don't know if you remember or not, but Alton and I, my husband and I, lived in New Mexico, which is actually
Yep.
higher. Santa Fe, which is the capital of New Mexico,
Mhm.
higher than
It's higher altitude than
But-
Denver.
Really? Wow.
yeah.
Santa Fe, Albuquerque, which is a couple cities that my wife and I were looking at, they're about 7,000 feet in altitude.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Albuquerque's about 52, and Santa Fe's about 75.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't
Yeah.
know that.
And yeah, Brian, I can give you some information later on if you want.
Bring it.
on that.
Bring it on.
But
Bring
yeah,
it on.
But Denver needs a good
Yeah.
D, though.
Yeah.
But if I were a team traveling to Denver to avoid altitude sickness, I would actually fly into Albuquerque or going to not Albuquerque, that's too long of a drive, but drive like somewhere like sea level in Colorado and drive into Denver, because
Yeah.
that'll help avoid altitude sickness.
Yeah.
But get there a couple of days before. As long as they have to do is stay hydrated, drink lots of water, which these guys do anyway,
Mm-hmm.
and then go from there. But you don't see a lot of players get sick from the altitude up there, so they know what they're doing.
Right. Then you get 4 at home with a bye week mixed in. This is the stretch. If all goes right for Carolina, this 4-game stretch is where they can really, really make some hay. Now, the competition is going to be upped a little bit because we're sitting at week 9 right now. You
Mhm.
host New Orleans, then you host actually, that Giants game is across
Germany,
the
baby.
pond. It's in Germany. That,
Mhm.
but it's considered a home game for the Panthers.
right.
That Giants game is across the pond. Then you get a week off. You get your bye after you play that game, and then Patrick Mahomes comes to town for a match with the world champion Chiefs. And that's a 1 o'clock kickoff. But there's a chance to make some hay in there for the Panthers with those games.
So we've seen the Chiefs come in too cocky.
Mm-hmm.
I am totally banking on that.
We
And
saw
I'm
it happen
banking
in
on an
Indianapolis.
upset. Sorry, Carrie.
Yep.
No, you're Homer, but your girl's a Homer too.
We saw it in Indianapolis
Mhm.
2 years ago.
Yeah.
Patrick Mahomes came in so cocky, and the Chiefs got out to a 20-3 lead against the Colts, only to have the Colts actually 17-3 lead against the Colts, only to have the Colts win it on a walk-off.
Come back.
Yeah.
They won that on a walk-off. If there is a major flaw against the Chiefs, and we pointed this out before, they come into games too cocky. Are they the champs? Yes. Are they the 2-time champs? Yes. But they can be had at any time. They can be had at any time. Then you get Tampa Bay to kick off December, and this one, December 8th, I'm looking at is going to be a very interesting matchup. We talked about Alabama quarterbacks and how they not good produced quarterbacks. You got a matchup of 2 of them. when you go to Philadelphia to face Jalen Hurts and the Eagles. Let's go back to the Alabama quarterback thing. You know, there's a common denominator with Alabama quarterbacks, especially lately. A little word we like to call injuries. Mac Jones, hello. Jalen Hurts, Bryce Young. We know Bryce got beat to a pulp this past year. He got beat to a pulp when he was at Alabama.
Oh, yeah. I feel bad for Bryce. And everybody was like, oh, his size, his size. No, his size doesn't concern me. It's the fact that with us last year, our coaching staff and our front office was in such, like, I mean, it was bottom of the barrel.
It was it was in disarray.
Like, we made the Jets look good, dude.
Yep.
It was bad. I forgot where I was going with that, but I think they're putting a lot of work into Icky. I know they're putting a lot of work into Taylor still, because Taylor's a vet, right? So we've had Taylor since what, 2016, 2017?
2017.
Yeah. And so he's now, a senior member. I'm glad Taylor knows the culture we had and we are getting again. It's key because last year home games, when we would start doing, and they would only do it during third quarter, like once or twice during third quarter. They would do the keep pounding, and it would energize the guys on the field, and then they wouldn't do it anymore.
They went away. I don't know why they went away from it anyway. I don't know why they went away from something that was not only so popular, but also so energizing.
And embedded.
Absolutely.
Embedded in the communities. Embedded in the state and surrounding states and communities. People literally, I would have friends be like, hey, I just got to keep pounding if they were going through something. I would say, you heard me say it, Brian. I said it to you once with
you said it to me when I was kicking cancer in the ass.
Yeah,
you said it to me every day. And I appreciate that. I appreciate that.
You have to. And it got embedded. And so for them to take it away, I think I know why. I think I think Mr. Tepper really wanted just to make everything his own. And I don't know that he knew the story of keep pounding, to be honest, because if you're not a Panthers fan, then you may not know. And if you're a team owner and you're a multi-billion-dollar hedge fund owner, then you're not really going to pay that much attention to the story behind keep pounding.
You're really not. You're really not. And I couldn't have said it. I couldn't have said it even better. I could not have said it better. You're not going to know. You're not going to know you're not going to know the history behind that phrase and the culture that was built behind it. But when it's stripped away, and the folks that really know it, you, myself, many others, and we've all talked about it on the air, off the air. The folks were saying it to me when I was at Duke, when I had when I was dealing with cancer and had to keep going back to the hospital. It's a culture. It truly is.
It is
truly a culture.
And I think Matt Rule came in wanting to make his mark, and I think that was one of his first things. I think the way Jerry Richardson had to sell the team, or he didn't have to sell, right? Like Dan Snyder didn't have to sell. He wasn't even being forced to sell. Neither was Jerry, but Jerry didn't want it to impact the team under the circumstances that he sold under.
Yep.
But I think Mr. Tepper thought it came from Jerry, and it didn't. You know that. I know that. It came from Coach Mills. It came from the locker room. It came from Dan Morgan. That's where it started. And you know what? I have a jersey from before Keep Pounding. It's not on there. I have jerseys from after Keep Pounding, and it's in there. Yep. And you know what? We got to do it. We just have to. So, yeah.
We gotta keep it pounding. This is Jennifer Matthews Lewis joining me for the first time in a while. We are gonna make this a habit to have her on, to come on and talk Panthers and all things that are happening in Carolina. Thank you very much, my dear. I appreciate you
Thank
coming on. I can't
you.
wait to have you back.
I can't wait to be back on. Talk to you later, B.
Thank you very much. She's a sweetheart. I love it.
Mm-hmm.
I absolutely love it. That's why I love guests like that come on and not only speak the truth, but speak their mind.
Right.
When I had Renee on yesterday, the Brahma Babe, when I had her on yesterday, she was so nervous about coming on. When she was so nervous about coming on, and she said, I don't know if I'd be a good guest. I said, why is that? Because I'm just a fan. I said, listen,
That's how
30 years
started.
ago, I was a fan. I'm a fan today. Only difference is I have a microphone in front of me.
Right.
And she's like, you don't mind? Heck no. Why would I mind that?
I mean, our guest on Tuesday was amazing.
Yep. And those are the kind of guests that we like. Matt Taylor, voice of the Colts, coming on,
Right.
speaking his mind as well. I had Mick Mixon for 2 years, voice of the Panthers. Had a blast.